Welcome, great to have you with us. You're watching Middle East Now on I24 News. I'm Laura Sellier, and these are the headlines. Another Hezbollah drone enters Israeli airspace and is downed over the Galilee region. Iran executes a young Jewish Iranian man after a trial activists say was significantly flawed. And several people arrested in connection with a probe into sensitive leaks from the office of the Israeli Prime Minister. First, Israel remains braced for an attack from Iran after the Islamic Republic warned it would use even more powerful warheads than during its previous two strikes. Iran sent a message via Arab diplomats after the United States warned it would not hold Israel back from retaliating. Just 8 days ago, Israeli fighter jets destroyed key parts of Iran's defense capabilities, leaving it vulnerable to any counterattack. Our Jody Notilovitz has the latest.
In response to Israeli strikes on Iranian military targets, Tehran may be planning a counterattack that will use more powerful warheads and other weapons not used in previous attacks. According to media reports which cited Iranian and Arab officials, the response to Israel will be, quote, strong and complex, as a reprisal for the loss of 4 soldiers and a civilian in an Israeli strike on the Islamic Republic just over 1 week ago. Reports indicating that the response could come this week. According to Israeli intelligence, Iran is planning to attack Israel via Iraq, and there are several Iranian-backed militia operating there, and they have attacked both Israel and US interests in Iraq. This is something of a headache for the government in Baghdad, which is allied to both the United States and Iran. We're here to talk about that. Omar Abu Layla is the executive director of DODZTITOTS. Great to have you with us, Omar. So, in theory, how would Iran use Iraq to facilitate an attack against Israel?
Thank you, Laura, for having me again. It's the project of Qasem Soleimani when Ali Khamenei sent him a long time ago, years ago, to design these militia in the region, to use them in this period. Like since 7 October, we've seen all these militia, how they are aggressively active against Israel and also against other countries. Well, the IDF has today released details about a raid into southern Syria. It happened a couple of months back, and a Syrian operative who was working on behalf of Iran was captured and brought to Israel. Well, more recently, there was a similar operation to extract a Hezbollah naval expert from Lebanon. A few details about that. Our Middle East correspondent Ariel Osseran has the details, though, on the Syrian operation for us now.
Another daring Israeli operation deep in Syrian territory. Israeli special forces raided the southern town of Saida in the Daraa governorate, capturing a Syrian national who gathered information on Israeli forces on behalf of Iranian intelligence, the IDF said.
منطقتك جيدة يعني استراتيجية نستفيد منها. إنه تابع لإيران اللي.
Well, another aspect to this regional conflict, Iranian media is claiming that Iranian and Azerbaijani naval forces took part in combined search and rescue drills in the Caspian Sea. Israel and Azerbaijan have strong partnerships in energy and defense, relationships that have been built up over the past decade or so. The Iranian Navy commander spoke about the drills. Let's take a listen.
God willing, everyone will cooperate with each other to properly establish the security of the maritime economy in this waterway and this very important ocean area in the world, so that, God willing, the countries and the dear people of the countries will continue their lives in peace and comfort.
Well, another Hezbollah drone made it into Israeli airspace earlier today, but was downed over the western Galilee region. The terrorist group fired a barrage of rockets at northern Israel this morning, and the IDF revealed the existence of yet another tunnel it said was designed to facilitate raids on Israel. We'll talk with Zach about that in a bit more detail in a moment. But first, let's head up to northern Israel. Our Nicole Zedek is standing by. Nicole, a lot going on over the past 24 hours. Just bring us up to date.
Another active day here on the northern border, Laura. As you mentioned, some of those projectiles fired from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. We've seen more than 60 projectiles fired towards the north throughout the course of the day. Now, the majority of that was actually this morning in two major rocket barrages towards the upper Galilee region. We saw two separate 30 barrages of rockets fired earlier this morning.
Come back. Several people have been arrested in connection with an investigation into the alleged leak of classified documents from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office. The judge in the case said the leaks harmed efforts to achieve the goals of the war in the Gaza Strip. More in this report.
A suspected leak of classified Gaza documents from the Prime Minister's office has rocked Israeli politics and outraged hostage families. According to partially released court filings, several officials working in Benjamin Netanyahu's office were arrested for sharing top-secret information with foreign media outlets aimed at politically benefiting Netanyahu, who denies any wrongdoing.
A string of human rights violations in Iran now. A Jewish Iranian man was hanged this morning. 20-year-old Arvin Nathaniel Gahrimani had been convicted of murder but was allegedly defending himself against a knife attack back in 2022. And activists say his trial was significantly flawed. Well, last week, Iran executed German-Iranian national Jamshid Sharmat, and there are now fears for a young female student, Ahu Daryeh, who Amnesty International says was violently arrested after she stripped off, reportedly in protest at Iran's strict Islamic dress code. We're here to talk.
Hi.
Turkey stripped 3 pro-Kurdish mayors of their posts in towns in the southeast of the country and appointed state officials to their posts. Instead, all belonged to the pro-Kurdish DEM party, which has 57 seats in the national parliament. They were removed for convictions and charges on terrorism-related offences. Well, to talk more about that, we're joined by Dr. Sinan Sidi. He's a senior fellow on Turkey at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracies, the FDD. Great to have you with us, Sinan. So, what exactly happened here? How can these mayors be just stripped of their powers in this way?
That's a great question. I mean, because it can. And Erdogan has been doing this not for the first time. It's happened several times in the last few electoral cycles where you have democratically elected mayors of certain cities and towns, but predominantly in the Kurdish provinces, summarily removed.
A court in Tunisia has sentenced a woman to 4.5 years in prison for sharing, quote, obscene content on social media. 4 other people are also set to stand trial. This under a new law that targets online content that the government deems in conflict with social values. Critics, though, say it's just the latest crackdown on personal freedoms by President Kais Saied. Well, for more on that, we're joined by Mike Sexton. He's a senior policy advisor for cyber and AI at the Third Way National Security Programme. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Mike. It's very subjective, isn't it? Content that conflicts with social values, because, of course, everybody has different ideas about social values. Is this a trend now in autocratic countries? Police the platforms, go after the individuals rather than ban the platforms altogether?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think you are absolutely right. It's impossible to tell from the public reporting what exactly is meant by this obscenity.
And finally, for many years now, Egypt has been deprived of some of its most significant ancient artifacts. Well, one man is on a mission to end that. The Egyptian archaeologist Zahi Hawass is taking on the world's big museums. More in this report.
Prominent Egyptian archaeologist and former antiquities minister Zahi Hawass has launched a petition for the return of the pharaonic bust of Queen Nefertiti from the Neues Museum in Berlin back to Egypt. Nefertiti's famous painted limestone bust was uncovered at Tel El Amarna, around 300 kilometers south of Cairo.
On today's program, just a few hours left for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump to convince voters they are best suited to lead the United States for the next 4 years. The Democrat vice president and Republican former president make their final push in battleground states ahead of voting day. We're live in Washington. Iran vows to use all its resources in its next attack on Israel, saying it plans to use more powerful warheads than any used in its previous direct strikes. Will American warnings make a difference to Tehran? Will Israel act first? we speak to a security expert.